And we're back with a Rimworld ideology tutorial. And today we're going to be testing how you convert pawns over to your religion as quickly and efficiently as possible. For example, Tomo here has Archotech Creed belief and their certainty is at 37%. You can look this up under their bio. You can also go under social. It lists it there as well. It lists it in both areas. Now Michelle's going to come along here and they've got a social of 10. The way this works is their social is the only thing that counts. Literally, that's it. This should reduce their faith by exactly 14 points. And boom, there you go. We've reduced them from 37 to 23. How do I know this is the only thing that matters is social? Well, if we check under Tomo here, they really don't like Mitchell at all. Also, they've got will. Actually, the resistance is already broken. Never mind on that front. But let's reload the save just for 1 second. Now Mitchell is wearing a top hat, which gives them a plus 20 to social. Tomo has got their social changed, so they now think Mitchell is their bestest friends in the whole wide world. At the same time, the prisoner's will and resistance are all completely shattered. And if we do this, we'll get the exact same result. It will reduce their will certainty down to 23%. Exact same. Makes absolutely no difference. As far as I can tell, the negotiation ability available in here, or negotiation ability right here, this is the only thing that affects the conversion process when you're converting people in a prison. And as you can see there, base value is 100%, social skill affects it, health from talking and hearing affect it, but they can't go above max. Meaning there is no way to boost this as far as I'm aware, not even Lucy. The only thing that matters is how high the social skill on a pawn is. Now, what does tweaking the social skill do? Here's a quick table of it. The big takeaway is if the social is at 0, it changes their faith by about 3 percentage points. If it's at, and then for every social point you go up after that, it adds an extra percentage point. There's a little bit of a break point somewhere between, I think it's 7 and 8, but that might just be fractions. You see, the thing is there's fractions of a percent it goes up, so it might not actually be a 2 percentage point gain between the 7 and 8 mark in terms of social, but hey, aim for it if you want. When it comes to converting the prisoners, you can only attempt to convert them twice a day. That means you're limited in how many percentage points you can knock off. And if you have low social skill, that means it's going to take a long time. As well as that, they recover their beliefs over time. So, for example, you can check on this person. You can see their change per day due to mood is plus 1.9%, meaning they're going to gain back about 2 percentage points per day. Say we are level 5, then we're going to be knocking off 8 points each time, which means, say, 16 points per day, but they gain back 2 of that, so it means we're giving them minus 14 per day. The lower your social stats on your converting pawn, the longer and longer it's going to take. This here is just a quick spreadsheet I did up. It's not that bad. This here is your social level. This here is how much faith it will reduce the target pawn by. And this is how long it would take to reduce a theoretical pawn from 100% to 0% faith, or convert them basically. This is assuming you're getting 2 attempts every day and their faith is recovering by 2% every day. And it's not actually horrible. For example, if someone had a social of 8, which would be pretty solid in a starting pawn, it will take you about, 4.5 days. Well, you kind of have to round up, remember, you can only do 2 attempts a day. So it'll take about 4.5 days to convert them to your fate, which is not actually terrible. I really thought it was going to be much worse than that. However, there are other things we can do to speed it up even more, and, well, there are some traits that make this much worse, but we'll get to that in a minute. To gain access to this convertibility down here, you will need to assign out roles using the Ritual Spot. Ritual Spot is available under Miscellaneous. It's in here somewhere, yeah, Ritual Spot. Now, you can go in here and do a role change, and it will actually be demanded at some point by your religion, and you can set up a moral guide. And that moral guide will have access to the convert ritual. This takes about 2 hours. It's impossible to actually fail that one. Now, this is Mitchell here. They've already got the convertibility. Fortunately, the convertibility is also tied directly... Actually, clear that for a second. We hover over it. It'll actually tell us how much of a certainty reduction it'll cause, and it's basically tied directly to their social skill as well. So the higher their social skill, the more the convert will do, meaning having someone low end with convert is bad. You want to give convert to your highest social pawn, if at all possible. It does effectively double damage. So, for example, there we're not going to do it 9.2%. It did double the effectiveness if they had just done a normal convert. So, the great thing is, though, it can be stacked, as in you can use it, and then you can still do the normal conversion stuff that you do with the pawns during the, with prisoners. And let's speed this along slightly, and done. Come on, hurry up. Done. And conversion is complete. Now, the moment someone is converted, you notice that their certainty in your faith is immediately at 50%. Very important. This is very useful. You see, there are these crisis of fates that are, it's possible to happen, and when they happen, they reduce the certainty someone has in their religion by 50%, which could be awkward if they have a crisis of fate just after you've converted them, so getting it up to 50% straight away is very nice. But let's investigate those crises of faith, because they can actually be very useful as well. It turns out getting a crisis of faith is not as simple as just treating pawns mean. For example, here is a whole bunch of prisoners. We've got 20 of them in here, and every single one of them are identical, and all of their moods are being kept roughly in the minor break threshold. There is a little bit of variance here and there depending on a few factors, but all of them are kept in the minor break threshold, and I kept them there for 5 days, and not a single one of them had a mental break. Turns out, I had no idea, prisoners can't have a mental break when they're in minor mental break threshold. Same scenario, made them a little bit more unhappy, and they kept them in the major break threshold, as in between extreme and minor. Kept them there for 5 days-ish. We had 2 mental breaks, but that was because 2 of them actually dipped into extreme. No one in the major break threshold ever broke. It appears prisoners cannot break if they're in minor or major break threshold. It just doesn't happen. Alright, on to extreme prisoner mental breaks. These ones here are all very, very, very unhappy prisoners. However, it will take a moment for their mood to dip down below the recommended amount. It turns out they only have 2 possible mental breaks, prisoners. I had no idea. One of them is Berserk. That's where they just start punching the door, try and break out and beat the snot out of anyone they run into. The second one they have is a Crisis of Faith that will reduce their certainty in the religion by 50%. This here is all my numbers from testing. You can see that on average about somewhere between 2 to 4 of them don't have a mental break, though in all fairness, the start of the day they're not broken until the graph catches up. Then when it comes to actual berserks, we got 44 out of 100 and 42 out of 100 in terms of faith mental breaks. So it's about 50-50. This is well within the margin of error. I figure it's about a 50-50 split either way. However, when it comes down to it, this is, this is still bad. The problem is, when people go berserk, they try and break out of their cells and, punch everything around them, which could be a little bit unfortunate. So we'll just wait until one of them has a break. And there we go. Which one is it? Yeah, noob here. You see there, they're punching their door to get out. However, this led to an interesting find. It turns out if we just brick them in, yeah, they lose interest. Oh look, can't get out, so they just wander around their cell doing nothing. This led to an interesting theory. What if we just wall them all in? It just means that we don't have to worry about them doing anything dumb. Plus, even if they're starving a little bit, it doesn't really matter. That just decreases their mood. We're okay with that. You see here, their certainty went from 88 to 38%. That's a 50% drop. That is kind of huge. Now, I'll go over why that's so huge. Actually, let's go over why that's so huge. Now, there's no point running this too much more. You can see we'll get the odd crisis of belief, berserk, all that stuff. Nothing much we can do. But why would you want to use this method? Well, that comes down to stats you do not or do want on pawns, depending on how way you look at it. Noob here has been stacked up with an awful lot of traits. This one here is slow learner. See that global certainty loss factor by 50%? Yeah, that means they only lose their certainty at half speed. Iron-willed is a 25 multiplied by 25%, global certainty loss factor minus by 50%, ascetic 50%, steadfast 50%, too smart 50%, steadfast 50%. Oh wait, we've got two too smarts there. Never mind. Anyway, let's just take iron-willed here, for example. That is one of the worst ones. Let's just add that onto this character over here. And now they've got the iron-willed trait. And you'll see that global certainty loss factor multiplied by 25%. If we go under social here, you'll see this has changed global certainty loss factor by 25%. What happens to Mitchell then? Let's do a quick convert here. This should knock off, what was it? 27 points, according to the logs there. We're all according to the records. And instead it knocked off 7 points. Wait, seriously? 7 points? Yeah. The effectiveness of our conversion has been reduced by 75%. 1/4 as effective. Let's go back and plug that into something else. I just want to show you just how devastating that is, because you still have to remember, they still have the potential to gain their certainty back. So the change here for this one is like 1.9% a day. And do bear in mind, well, they are pretty happy, I suppose. They're, oh god, and look at this. Their mood's not even that amazing, to be honest. This here is the exact same format as before. You got your social level here, faith reduction right here, only for the multipliers. We're assuming this is iron-willed. And yeah, this drastically increases the amount of time it takes. Working at a quarter speed, you still got to remember they're gaining back a little bit of certainty every turn as well. And that gets worse and worse the less of their certainty you reduce. So even at social skill of 8, which would be very good on a starting pawn, you're looking at 20 days to convert someone over to your religion. And if you just take the 50% multiplier ones, the ones that are not quite as bad as Ironworld, but still annoying, you're still looking at about 9, well, actually, it's more like 9.5 days. But let's just round that down to 9 and be generous to ourselves. And that's assuming you hit every single conversion attempt with the pawn with 8 social, and that they get to do the 2 of them every day, and they don't get distracted, sick, injured, called away to a fight, anything like that, or get distracted by their jobs. So yeah, these are going to hurt. It's when you start facing pawns like these that you start thinking, hey, if I could chuck them into a bad room and they have a 50-50 chance of coming away with a 50% reduction in fate, at that point the numbers start seeming more and more worthwhile. Just to add further sauce onto this, it turns out this can get a lot worse. Yeah, totally. Let's just go into precepts here, and 1 second, where is it? Apostasy, yes. Abhorrent, horrible, disapproved, horrible. This is an actual precept that some of your religions can get, or some of the religions can get, and what it does is it reduces the global certainty loss factor, meaning you can have a pawn who gets this. Actually, is that all saved? Yeah, it should be, whatever. And now let's go in and check under their social, because it does stack. So global certainty loss factor is now down to 10%. So 25% instead of 10. Forget it. You're not converting them. That's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. And that's only with one stat, which is Ironworld, and a little bit of religious coercion. In fact, they all stack. So, for example, if you have a pawn with all of this stacked, well, if we check under their social here, your chance of conversion is 0.2%. It'll be 0.2% as effective as normal, meaning it would be literally impossible to convert them. However, there is hope in a way. If you mentally break them and have a Crisis of Faith is unaffected by any of these, as in none of these traits, religions, anything like that. If they have a Crisis of Faith, it's a flat minus 50%. However, there is, well, not perfection with that either. Let's hit this person with a Crisis of Faith, dropping them to 14%. Now, they're still an Interstellar Loyalist, but if we hit them with a second one where where this takes them down below the 0 threshold, they will instantly convert to a new ideology. And it's completely random. Doesn't matter if they've ever even seen that before. For example, they've converted to purple. Let's hit them again. They're now sturdy neo-Anabaptism. Now back to interstellar loyalism again. Archotechnic creed. Emilyists. Sturdy neo. Yeah. They will basically just keep jumping around like crazy. It doesn't matter. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. So if you have someone who's iron-willed, you can potentially just try and keep breaking them. However, that also comes with its own set of problems, but let's try the best methods I found so far. The simplest method I have found was just, well, jam them in a room with no lights, give them a sleeping spot, no, not a bed, make sure the room is absolutely filthy, also stick in a bunch of corpses. Rotting corpses are a bonus because they actually get a different mood penalty for regular corpses and rotting corpses. If you don't have rotting corpses, it's fine, just put in some regular ones. After a while, they become rotten ones. Now, as for feeding them, just don't feed them at all. This actually makes them hungry, which stacks on top of it, and as their hunger levels increase, this actually makes them even more inclined to have mental breaks. Where is it? Anything else we got left on them? No. Also, wall them in. This way, if they have a berserk episode, you don't have to worry about dealing with it, and at the same time, it means you don't have to worry about feeding them either. And there we go. First mental break. They're going to go berserk. The problem is when they recover from this berserk, they're going to get a catharsis of plus 40. Hopefully we've got enough in there to cause them to go, well, to break some more, but we'll have to see. Once their berserk rage has come to an end, it seems their mood is still going to be quite low. Oh, they're getting some rest. Unfortunately, their exhaustion is not kicking in. But on the bright side, they're incredibly badly malnourished, and once that maxes out, it should go to a minus 42. Now, some people will encourage you to get them to cannibalism. As you can see, the starving is giving them minus 32, and all of this stuff combined is not quite countering out the catharsis. Problem is that plus 40 is a big hurdle to get over. We've got to get them down to below 4.1% on this particular type of pawn, or below 5% on most average ones. And even though we've set them to eat nothing, they're still going to try and chow down on the corpse. And unfortunately, that's going to get rid of their starving debuff. Of course, it will give them 8 human meat and 8 corpse, which is a 32, but it's gotten rid of the malnutrition. So what normally happens is, oh, I can see why it got worse now. They hadn't actually observed a rotting corpse before this, the one in the corner, so they weren't close enough to that to actually trigger that, so that gave them an extra minus 6, and 8 without table gave them an extra minus 3. That's why they've now capped out at 0, which is good for us. But even if they didn't, what would happen is they would go into starvation mode, which is minus 42, which should is also completely cancel catharsis. Combined with observed in corpse and rotting corpses, it should mean they, well, bottoms out their mood below the extreme break threshold, and we get a second chance for them to have a mental break, and hopefully, well, the one that reduces their faith. Oh wow, badly malnourished has come back along with 8 human meat, which still has 10 hours to expire, and 8 corpse. They are incredibly unhappy. Come on, break, why don't you? And there we go. They actually had another break, and it's reduced their certainty to 17%. At this point, you'd probably take them out. I mean, yeah, they've had 2 catharsis stacked on top of each other. I don't think... Ooh, could you get another one? Actually, no, you couldn't get another one. It's almost impossible to keep them. After 2 catharsis, it's almost impossible to keep them down there. As well as that, there's a few other problems you're going to experience when you do this. Namely to do with religions that you can get. For example, some of them are going to be okay with corpses. Like in one of my playthroughs, they've got one of the sides I'm facing, they're just fine with corpses. This can be changed to don't care for the raider precept. So very common with pirates and stuff like that, which means they won't care about the corpses in the room, making it much harder to break them twice. Breaking someone once is easy enough. Just starve them. Seriously, just starve someone, lock them in a room, and they will get a minus 42 for the last day or so before they actually collapse. No problems. You can break them once, but breaking them twice, I wouldn't say so. I would not really advocate using these scenarios a lot. It's just, this one is a little bit problematic. You can't really depend on this. Reason being, it's completely random. So you could have 2 mental breaks on a pawn or 4 in a row, and none of them would give you what you're looking for. All of them might be just berserk, and, well, then you're just running into more and more problems. You're butting your head off a brick wall. Plus, it's now going to take, what is it, catharsis? Yeah, it's going to take 1.7 days for the first catharsis to wear off, and then another 3 days for the second. And, it can get even more complicated. For example, say this religion here. This is, where do we put him? Durga's call. This is one of the religions I'm currently facing. They idealize pain, meaning beating them up does nothing. They're fine with rough living, which means cold temperatures and all that stuff don't bother them. They don't mind sleeping on slabs. They ignore comfort. They're not bothered by corpses. Yeah, they're just... and cannibalism is only disapproved of. It's not, like, really bad. They're just like, it's a little bit... whatever. And, yeah, so we could put them in this room, and they just don't care. In fact, let's grab this pawn here. Having changed their religion to Durga's cell, now what happens is we'll just leave them in the cell, and you notice they're not bothered by the corpses in the slightest. Also, they're chowing down on a corpse right now. So, Hatti's an environment, 8 corpse. As you can see, not really that bothered. 5, 6, 7. They're getting a minus 17 for eating a raw corpse in a darkened cell hole like this. It's just, and they're not bothered by the darkness. They're not bothered by sleeping on the floor. Well, okay, they are bothered by the darkness, but they're not bothered by sleeping on the floor. We could take the roof off this, and it still wouldn't bother them. So you're going to have to come up with inventive ways to torture them if you want to use this method. Though, honestly, I think the only real reasons to use this would be if you had a tough pawn that's going to be really hard to convert. First thing you do, chuck them in a room like this, put around some of the corpses from whoever you killed around them that they were that they came in with, and make an attempt to break them once or twice. If you can break them once or twice and get their certainty down, great, but I probably wouldn't drag it on. The reason being, even though this person's mood is just way, way down, their certainty in the religion is still going up slightly. So your best bet when you capture a new pawn is their certainty is usually going to be quite low. For example, let's grab a quick raid. This here is just an average raid, and if we check under their certainty here, you can see that one's at 63%, say the next one's at, 66%. You can see they're all different levels, some of them 94. But the main thing is, they usually don't start at 100%. Some of them are pretty close now, don't get me wrong, but if you capture a pawn and they're already at 70%, it might be best off to just throw them into a cell and immediately start converting them. This is also the order you do things in. For example, when it comes to prisoners, I used to immediately recruit them, or reduce the resistance, and then try converting their will. I would probably advise you to immediately hit them with a convert, assuming that their faith is below, say, the 90% mark. Immediately start converting them, because saving you having to do that last extra 10% can save you an awful lot of time, depending on how tough that pawn is. Now, that still leaves us with one last conversion method, and that is the conversion ritual. 1 second while we set that up. To do a conversion ritual, you can use the ritual spot. However, you can also use the grand altar. So let's use that. You can do a begin conversion ritual, and it combines a whole bunch of factors. Namely, the number of participants, the room impressiveness, and the social impact of the pawn in question. So, for example, here, Mitchell, we have completely tricked them out at plus 20. But you know what? Let's just downgrade that to a more realistic social of 10, which I believe is what they currently have in my current playthrough. And let's grab Noob here. Noob is... Well, Noob's a special case. Let's just say that much. We're going to start the conversion ritual there. Noob is slow learner, iron-willed, abrasive, ascetic, steadfast, too smart, yeah, they're really, really, really impossible to convert. And our odds here are not going to be amazing. Now, let's just speed this along. In fact, everyone comes along. We're on super speed right now. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We just did a masterful conversion ritual. Now, the odds of this were not actually great, and I was hoping we'd get a worse one, but never mind. A masterful conversion ritual was one of the potential outcomes. Let's go back and actually, let's have a quick look at Noob here. Noob is now an eminist. Instantly. They've got 97% certainty. That's because it was a masterful conversion ritual. Any other result, and this would not have worked nearly so well. We got lucky. Running back in time, you'll see Noob here had 64% certainty. Mitchell has dropped back down to 10 social, and if we go to the begin conversion ritual, it gives us the potential outcomes. Now, the expected quality is fine, but what really matters here is the percentage chances. For example, we have a 19% chance of getting a masterful conversion. That means, what, a little bit under 1 in 5 chance that we could instantly convert a pawn. However, 56% won't instantly convert a pawn. In fact, on a pawn this tough, I'm not even sure how much damage it'll do. You know what? Let's see how much damage it will do. We'll speed this along, and I find it highly unlikely we'll get 2 of those masterful conversions in a row. God damn it. There we go, an effective conversion ritual. Reduced their certainty by 30%. That's pretty damn good. Not only that, once that's done, Mitchell still has the convertibility available to them. This is very important. If you do convert first, this convertibility belonging to your moral guide, and then you try to do the conversion ritual, it won't work. You want to do the conversion ritual first and then the convert afterwards. Now, what's to stop you from just doing that again? Well, there's the cooldown timer on it. It's not a perfect lockout, but what it does is it gives you a minus 95% that slowly degrades by over the next 20 days and it goes back to 0 again. But this means we're probably going to have a terrible or ineffective conversion. Ineffective conversion rituals are bad. So when you're doing this, you can't run them multiple times in a row. You're going to have to wait until the cooldown happens, and you at least have a chance of getting an effective or masterful. Because if you get ineffective or terrible, it actually increases the certainty of the pawn. So they're a little bit of a roll of the dice. All right, very, very, very last thing about this. We are going to prioritize converting flow here. The reason being, flow has nervous, volatile, and kind. Now, what these do is they actually increase the chances of conversion. They're not as certain in their faith as everyone else. And same as the other stats, these things stack. So if we check under social here, they've got a 1200% modifier to global certainty loss factor, meaning this should be just an instant, oh, boom, look, 43 to 0%. You should probably, if you're stuck with very low social pawns at the start, these are traits you should look out for because you have you're going to double your chance with nervous, triple your chance with volatile, and also double your chance with kind of being able to convert them. So you'll be able to convert them twice or even 3 times as fast, or if you can stack 2 of them on top of each other, extra gold. All of this was assuming you wanted all of your pawns of the same faith. There are instances where that may not be something you're looking for. However, occasionally you are going to have pawns that you end up hiring or end up joining you that are not of the same faith. In which instance, occasionally your pawns will chat to them just in regular conversation and will try to convert them. This can go well or badly, but honestly, it's never going to convert them over to your side fully. If you want to convert them over, you're either going to have to hit them with converts, conversion rituals, and or just imprison them and do convert them via the normal methods. That's pretty much your only chances. Anyway, that is a very hopefully short and condensed version of how to convert pawns over to your religion. I hope you enjoyed and good luck.